Welcome to Miniatures Rundown. I'm Kevin, and today we are once again taking back your Warhammer. So, if you watched the previous parts of the series, you may have noticed that there was a break between this video and the last video, and that's for a good reason. Basically, we found out that the new edition of 40K was coming out, and I really wanted to wait to see what it was going to look like before I spoke any more about taking back your Warhammer. Because after all, I really wouldn't know what we're taking back if I didn't know anything about the new edition. And now that I've got a few games of the new edition under my belt, I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of research on it, I have some things to say. So the main concept behind taking back your Warhammer was, if you hadn't watched the previous videos, was taking an ownership over the game that may have felt like it was out of your control or out of your group's control, where your game was dictated by what the meta was, the nationwide meta, what the tournament meta was, and it made it hard for you to enjoy 40K because everyone's concern was about things that really didn't directly affect you. Being upset over this combo or this exploit or whatever, when maybe that's not something that your local group was really all that concerned with to begin with. But it does change the attitude and the perception of the game within the group that you're playing with. Taking ownership over those things and making Warhammer your own. After all, this is a game of plastic and toy soldiers and dice. And unlike a video game, you can do whatever you want. Nobody's going to break into your gaming group and take all of your toys away because you're not playing the game correctly, quote unquote. With the advent of 11th edition and the changes that we've seen come, especially to narrative play. And I talk about narrative play a lot in this series because I think narrative play is one of the best ways to kind of break your play group out from the constant meta grind that you often see in Warhammer. And I think that once again, they've changed narrative play in an interesting way. I'm not going to say it's better or worse. The jury for me is still out on that with the new Dominatus deck and how that has basically replaced Crusade. I even talked about this. I am curious to see that the more accessible version of narrative play that is expressed within Dominatus is a good alternative to kind of separating the game from we're always playing tournament practice, which is kind of the default setting for when people get together to come play 40K. Is every game is a tournament practice game, whether you're practicing for a tournament or not. And to be clear, and as I said in previous videos, there's nothing wrong with competitive play. I like competitive play. I go to 40K tournaments all the time. I'm not very good at them, but I do enjoy them. But my heart really is with narrative play, and I really enjoy the difference in the feel of the game when you're invested in the story that's being unfolded on the table rather than the score that's being tabulated. So for me, narrative really does separate those two things out into not so much distinct compartments, but it does make them neighbors, and maybe neighbors that share a wall. And so they can hear each other from time to time. With 11th edition now, I think that it has much easier to introduce people to narrative play. I believe that the rules, in a lot of ways, even the chapter approved deck, kind of meshes in narrative aspects with the interplay between force dispositions. So your mission varies slightly from, or even severely from, your opponent's mission, but at the same time, the two missions often seem to intermingle in a way that is really interesting and kind of tells a story in a small way. I think that, once again, the symmetrical battlefields are there for ease of play, and you don't have to do that. Once again, as I've discussed in previous iterations of this video, is that part of the challenge of taking back your Warhammer is introducing people to other ways to enjoy and play. And sometimes that means kind of breaking people out of their comfort zone. And one of those big comfort zones is the symmetrical terrain layouts. I remember in previous editions, and of course, this is my old man coming out, is where battlefields were just kind of whatever you made up. There was no rhyme or reason besides making it look cool. And so there were unbalanced terrain layouts. And as Warhammer became more and more competitive, the focus ended up being making the battlefields more and more symmetrical and look more like paintball fields than battlefields. While that has improved competitive play significantly, it has made the battlefields quite a bit less evocative. So a part of that is taking it upon yourself to design battlefields that are both fun to play on in terms of they're not, obviously advantaging one side over another too much. There can be asymmetry, and I think asymmetry can be fine. Also, not being so wild and hard to play on that it's onerous to have that terrain be in different places where we all have big hands, and it can be really hard to move the models around if you're going to place terrain and make a big dense cityscape where it's hard to play on. And so you don't want to have that either. The big thing to really impress on is also to have patience. People aren't going to be super receptive to you wanting to really change the paradigm at first. It's going to be small incremental changes and small introductions to people, and just showing them, hey, I am representing a manufactorum with this battlefield, and so this is why this is the way it is. Would you like to play on this battlefield? And you can play with the chapter approved missions as long as, there's a terrain feature where all the objectives are supposed to be and all that stuff. You can still do that. And that's pretty liberal. So you can really have a really cool evocative battlefield without it looking like a airsoft game. I do think that being accepting also of failures in this realm, of people saying, no, that's not the game I'm looking for, and being okay with that. And I think really, as I've said it in previous videos, is that it probably is just going to take you and a friend exploring that together and showing people that it can be fun and showing people that it is different. One of the things I talk about a lot when it comes to this, and what inspired this video for me, is going to the Grand Narrative in Atlanta, seeing the different battlefields there and the locations that they are supposed to mirror. And some of them, like I played on Planet Fenris once, and it was pretty open, like you would imagine Fenris might be. And so it was kind of a shooting gallery, but it was okay, because then the next time I played, I was playing on a shrine world where there was buildings everywhere and there were crypts everywhere, and line of sight was really restricted. So it was very different. And I think those changes and that mashup of different types of just battlefields, and we're just talking about battlefields. This is, this can go so much deeper into, what army you bring to the table, what your opponent brings to the table, and what kind of missions that you play. But just changing the battlefield by itself does so much to make the game so much more immersive and so much more evocative, and help make it your own. You don't have to use the recommended terrain layout. And I think that giving yourself permission to do that and to explore that is a big part of taking back your Warhammer. With moving forward through that, then that gives you more freedom to explore maybe writing your own missions, maybe, making custom characters or whatnot for a campaign. I think that those are all things that we used to do back in the day, and you don't see a whole lot anymore just because of how centralized Warhammer has become. But I think that those are things you can totally still explore today. It just takes a little bit of resilience and a little bit of faith in yourself to be able to do that. And I think that it's possible. It's something that I certainly am endeavoring to try and keep moving forward myself. I am going once again to the Grand Narrative this year, and I'm hoping to pick up some more tips and pick up some more inspiration from that place. And I certainly hope that you guys will make attempts to make this hobby your own. And you don't have to accept the thing that Games Workshop just spoon feeds to you. You can make it what you want it to be, even if that means playing a previous edition, or if that means playing, your own homebrew rules for 11th edition. Now, the thing to, of course, accept is that the further you stray from the main line, the smaller your group is going to probably be. It's just kind of the nature of things. People, when they're getting into the game, they're going to want to play the game the way that it's presented, and deviation from that is going to be harder to sell. So The group of people that you play with is going to be smaller, but that's okay. If you're having fun, that's the whole point. And if you're really enjoying the hobby, you're enjoying the models that you put together and put so much love and effort into, I really think that is the whole point. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't catch on nationwide. It doesn't matter if there's not a convention level Kevin's 40K game. That's not even what I would want anyway. I think that is not the scope, and that's not the goal. The goal is to enjoy your hobby and to kind of relieve some of the bitterness that can happen when a game changes in a way that you don't care for, or if not even that, if just the people around the game that you play change in a way that you don't care for, where the focus is, oh, what's the latest meta build? What is this exploit here? And if you and your friends have already built this resilience to that of like, oh, we don't like it, we'll change it. And that's how you and your friends play. That's awesome. And I really recommend doing that. Anyway, I hope this is inspirational for you. And I hope that you take steps in your own way to take your Warhammer back and to play it in a way that you enjoy. With that being said, if you like this content and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe. And check out our Patreon down below. Every dollar you give really does help us bring this content to you. Thank you, and happy gaming.